In the shadows of an abandoned farm, a once majestic horse stood chained and forgotten, his spirit crushed by years of neglect. No one had noticed his silent suffering until a passionate rescue team discovered his existence. What happened next would transform not only his life, but the lives of everyone who witnessed his extraordinary journey to freedom. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The late autumn wind whistled through the dilapidated boards of an old barn on the outskirts of Pine Valley, carrying with it the first bite of winter. Sarah Mitchell, leader of Hope Haven Horse Rescue, gripped her phone tightly as she listened to an anonymous tip that had come in just hours before. The caller's voice had trembled with urgency, describing a horse that had been chained in the same spot for years, hidden from the world behind the crumbling walls of a foreclosed property. "We have to move quickly," Sarah told her small team of volunteers as they pulled up to the property in their rescue trailer. The sky hung low and grey, matching the somber mood as they approached the weathered gate. The lock had long since rusted away, leaving only twisted metal where security had once been. The moment they stepped onto the property, the weight of neglect was palpable. Overgrown weeds reached toward their knees, and debris from years of abandonment littered the ground. But it was the silence that struck them most deeply, the unnatural quiet of a place that should have been filled with the sounds of life. Tom, the team's veterinarian, moved ahead with practiced caution, his weathered face tight with concern. "Remember, we don't know what we're walking into. Animals in these situations can be unpredictable." His words carried the weight of 20 years of rescue experience. As they rounded the corner of the barn, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. There, tethered to a massive oak tree by a heavy chain, stood a horse that seemed more phantom than flesh. His coat, which might once have been a rich bay, was matted and dull, hanging in patches over protruding ribs. Years of standing in the same spot had created a circular path worn into the earth, a testament to his endless pacing. The horse's head hung low, his eyes vacant, as though he had long ago accepted his fate. The chain around his neck had worn away the fur, leaving raw skin beneath. Sarah had seen many cases of neglect in her 10 years of rescue work, but something about this horse's quiet resignation struck her to her core. "Dear God," whispered Maria, their newest volunteer, her eyes filling with tears. "How could anyone do this?" Sarah approached slowly, her heart pounding. The horse didn't lift his head or show any sign of acknowledging their presence. It was as if years of isolation had taught him that hope was a luxury he couldn't afford. The chain that bound him was thick and rusty, secured with a padlock that had nearly fused shut from exposure to the elements. "Tom, we're going to need the bolt cutters," Sarah called softly, never taking her eyes off the horse. As she drew closer, she began speaking in low, soothing tones. "It's okay, boy. We're here now. You're not alone anymore." The horse's ear twitched slightly, the first sign that he was aware of their presence. Sarah's trained eye took in every detail of his condition. Despite his emaciated state, there was something in his bone structure, in the proud arch of his neck, that spoke of noble breeding. This was no ordinary farm horse. This was an animal that had once known better days. Tom returned with the tools, and as he worked to cut through the chain, Sarah continued her gentle murmuring. The horse remained still, but she noticed his breathing had quickened slightly, Whether from fear or hope, she couldn't tell. The moment the chain fell away, something extraordinary happened. The horse lifted his head, and for the first time, Sarah saw a flicker of life in his eyes. They were a deep, rich brown, clouded by years of suffering, but not entirely defeated. In that moment, she made a silent promise. This horse would know love again. "We need to document everything," Sarah instructed, her voice thick with emotion. Maria began taking photographs, while Tom conducted an initial health assessment. The evidence they gathered would be crucial for the legal case they would surely pursue. But Sarah's immediate concern was getting the horse to safety. Leading him to the trailer proved to be a delicate challenge. Years of confinement had left him uncertain on his feet, and every step seemed to cause him pain. The team moved with infinite patience, allowing him to set the pace. Each step away from that oak tree was a small victory, each moment of trust a precious gift. As they finally secured him in the trailer, Sarah noticed something glinting in the weak sunlight. Half buried in the dirt near where the horse had stood was an old nameplate, tarnished almost beyond recognition. She brushed away the soil, and there, barely legible, was the name Phoenix. "Phoenix," she whispered, testing the name on her tongue. How fitting for a horse they had found in ashes, waiting to rise again. The drive back to Hope Haven was silent, each team member lost in their own thoughts. Sarah kept glancing back at their rescue, her mind already racing with plans for his rehabilitation. She knew from experience that the physical wounds, though severe, would be the easiest to heal. It was the invisible scars, the trauma, the fear, the broken trust that would pose the greatest challenge. At the sanctuary, they had prepared a special stall, padded with extra bedding and equipped with heat lamps to help combat the years of exposure to the elements. As they carefully guided Phoenix into his new home, Sarah noticed how he tensed at the sight of walls around him. Freedom, after so long in chains, was its own kind of terror. "Easy, boy," she soothed, staying with him as the others prepared fresh water and a small portion of hay. "This is your safe place now. No one will ever hurt you again." That first night, Sarah stayed late, sitting outside Phoenix's stall talking to him softly about nothing and everything. She told him about Hope Haven, about the other rescued horses who had found healing there, about the green pastures where he would one day run free. Whether he understood her words didn't matter. It was the gentle cadence of her voice, the consistent presence of kindness that she hoped would begin to rebuild his shattered world. As the sanctuary grew quiet and the first stars appeared, in the sky, Sarah made a few quick calls, first to the local authorities to report the abuse, then to Clara, the sanctuary's equine behaviorist who had worked miracles with traumatized horses before. Finally, she called her mother, who had taught her everything she knew about horse rescue. "We found one today, Mom," she said, her voice catching. "The worst case I've ever seen, but there's something about him. Something special. There. Always is, sweetheart," her mother replied softly. "Every horse has a story to tell, if we're just patient enough to listen." Looking at Phoenix's silhouette in the dim light of his stall, Sarah knew she would listen to his story, no matter how long it took to tell. This was just the beginning of a journey that would test everything she knew about healing and hope. But as she watched him tentatively explore his new space, taking his first small steps toward trust, she felt a surge of determination. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. veterinary examinations, rehabilitation plans, and the long road of physical and emotional recovery. But for now, in this quiet moment, Sarah celebrated one simple truth. Phoenix was safe, and his chains were gone forever. The real work of transformation was about to begin. Dawn broke over Hope Haven Horse Sanctuary, casting long shadows across the frost-covered ground. Sarah had barely slept, her mind filled with images of Phoenix and the enormous task that lay ahead. She arrived early, before the rest of the staff, carrying a notebook filled with rehabilitation plans and a heart full of determination. As she approached Phoenix's stall, she found him exactly where they had left him the previous night, standing in the far corner, his body tense and alert. But something was different. The hay they had left remained untouched. Yet there were signs he had drunk some water. It was a small victory, but in rescue work Sarah had learned to celebrate every step forward. Good morning, beautiful boy," she called softly, keeping her distance as she began her morning routine. She moved deliberately, making sure he could see her every action. Trust would be built in these small moments, these quiet exchanges that showed him humans could be predictable, safe. Tom arrived shortly after, carrying his medical kit. The morning light revealed Phoenix's condition even more starkly than the previous day. His coat was worse than they had initially thought, with patches of rain rot and evidence of lice. Old scars crisscrossed his body, telling silent stories of past abuse. "We need to do a full examination," Tom said, his voice gentle but firm. "But we'll have to be careful. He's severely malnourished, and his muscles have atrophied from standing in one place for so long." Sarah nodded, already preparing the mild sedative they would need. Even with years of experience, handling a traumatized horse was delicate work. One wrong move could undo hours of progress. As they waited for Clara, the behaviorist, to arrive, Sarah began talking to Phoenix about his upcoming examination. She had learned long ago that horses responded not just to words, but to the energy and intention behind them. "We're going to help you feel better," she promised. "It might be scary at first, but we'll take it slow." Clara arrived carrying her specialized equipment, tools designed specifically for working with traumatized horses. Her approach was unique, combining traditional horsemanship with modern understanding of equine psychology. "Let's see what we're working with," Clara murmured, her experienced eyes taking in every detail of Phoenix's body language. She noticed how he shifted his weight, how his ears moved at different sounds, the way his muscles tensed when someone came too close. The examination revealed the full extent of Phoenix's condition. Beyond the visible injuries, he showed signs of chronic malnutrition, dental issues, and severe muscle weakness. His hooves, never properly cared for, had grown, misshapen and cracked. But what concerned Clara most was his psychological state. "See how he doesn't react to normal stimuli," she pointed out. "It's like he's shut down completely. This isn't just fear, it's learned helplessness. He's forgotten how to be a horse." Sarah felt her heart constrict, but she refused to let despair take hold. "Then we'll help him remember," she said firmly. "Where do we start?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Clara outlined a rehabilitation plan that would address both his physical and emotional needs. First, we need to establish a routine. Horses find security in predictability. Every interaction, every feeding, Every treatment needs to happen at the same time, in the same way. They created a schedule that would involve the entire team. Morning feeds would be accompanied by gentle grooming sessions, gradually increasing in duration as Phoenix became more comfortable with human touch. Physical therapy would begin with simple exercises to rebuild his muscle strength, followed by short walks to help him rediscover his natural movement. But it was the emotional rehabilitation that would prove most challenging. Clara explained that Phoenix needed to learn to be a horse again, to remember how to play, to express himself, to trust his own instincts. "We'll need to introduce him to other horses," Clara suggested, "but carefully. Too much too soon could overwhelm him. I think Shadow might be a good choice for his first companion." Shadow was one of Hope Haven's success stories, a gentle gelding who had overcome his own trauma to become what the team called their therapy horse. He had an uncanny ability to calm nervous rescues and show them the way back to trust. As they implemented the first stages of Phoenix's care plan, Sarah noticed small changes. He began to watch them as they moved around his stall, his eyes tracking their movements with growing awareness. When she brought his food, his ears would prick forward slightly, a tiny sign that he was beginning to associate humans with positive experiences. One morning, about a week into his rehabilitation, Sarah arrived to find Phoenix had moved to the front of his stall. It wasn't much, barely a few steps, but it was the first time he had voluntarily approached the area where humans typically stood. "Look who's feeling brave today," she said warmly, fighting back tears of joy. She stood quietly, allowing him to decide whether to retreat or stay. To her amazement, he remained, his nostrils flaring slightly as he caught her scent. That same day, they attempted their first real grooming session. Sarah had been leaving soft brushes in his stall, letting him become accustomed to their presence. Now, with Clara supervising, she began to gently brush his neck, the area horses typically find least threatening. At first, Phoenix trembled, but he didn't pull away. As Sarah continued with slow, rhythmic strokes, she felt some of the tension leave his body. For a brief moment, his eyes softened, and he lowered his head slightly, a gesture of tentative acceptance that made Sarah's heart soar. The breakthrough came during his first meeting with Shadow. They had prepared carefully, setting up adjacent paddocks so the horses could see each other without direct contact. Shadow, true to his nature, approached the fence with calm curiosity. Phoenix initially retreated to his corner, but Shadow's peaceful presence seemed to awaken something in him. Over the next few hours, Phoenix gradually moved closer to the fence. Each step was cautious, calculated, but driven by an instinct stronger than fear, the innate need for companionship that all horses share. By sunset, the two horses stood, merely feet apart, separated only by the fence, sharing the same quiet space. "This is huge," Clara whispered, watching from a distance. "He's choosing to connect. That's the first step toward healing." The team celebrated these small victories while remaining mindful of the long road ahead. Each day brought new challenges. Sometimes Phoenix would regress, retreating into himself when startled by unexpected noises or movements. But increasingly, these setbacks were followed by moments of progress that proved his resilient spirit was slowly awakening. Sarah began keeping a detailed journal of his recovery, noting every milestone. The first time he took food from her hand, his first voluntary. Nicker, the day he finally allowed her to touch his face. Each entry was a testament to his growing trust and strength. Word of Phoenix's rescue had spread through the local community, and donations began arriving at Hope Haven. Special feed supplements, therapeutic equipment, even a custom-made blanket for the approaching winter. People were moved by his story, seeing in his journey their own struggles with adversity and hope. One evening, as Sarah finished her final checks, she found Phoenix standing at his window, gazing out at the sanctuary's fields, where other rescued horses grazed. The setting sun caught his coat, and for the first time she could see hints of the magnificent horse he must have been, and could be again. "You're going to run in those fields one day," she promised him softly. "And when you do, you're going to show the world what it means to rise above the darkest circumstances." Phoenix turned to look at her, and in his eyes, Sarah saw something that hadn't been there before, a spark of life, a glimmer of the warrior spirit that had helped him survive years of neglect. It wasn't just about physical healing anymore. It was about reclaiming his dignity, his identity, his right to joy. As she drove home that night, Sarah reflected on how Phoenix's journey was teaching her as much as she was teaching him. About patience, about resilience, about the healing power of unwavering love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now she celebrated the miracle of a broken spirit learning to trust again. The sanctuary was quiet under the stars, but within Phoenix's stall, a transformation was taking place, not just of body, but of soul. With each gentle touch, each kind word, each moment of patience, the chains of his past were being replaced by the bonds of trust and hope. His story was far from over, but its direction had changed forever. The winter months brought new challenges to Phoenix's rehabilitation, but they also revealed the extraordinary depth of his spirit. One particularly cold morning, Sarah arrived at Hope Haven to find the sanctuary transformed by an unexpected snowfall. The pristine white blanket covered everything, creating an ethereal silence that seemed to hold the world in suspension. As she made her way to Phoenix's stall, she noticed something remarkable. Instead of hiding in his usual corner, he stood at the window, his breath creating delicate frost patterns on the glass as he watched the snowflakes dance in the morning light. It was the first time she had seen him show genuine curiosity about his surroundings. Clara arrived shortly after, carrying new therapeutic equipment she had specially ordered for Phoenix. "Look who's becoming an explorer," she remarked, noticing his attentive posture. "I think it's time we try something new." They had been gradually increasing Phoenix's physical therapy, but today they would attempt a crucial step in his rehabilitation, his first walk in the snow. The pristine ground would allow them to clearly see his gait patterns, revealing any hidden issues with his movement. Sarah prepared him carefully, using the routine they had established over the past weeks. The simple act of grooming had become a sacred ritual between them, each stroke of the brush strengthening their bond. As she worked, she noticed how his muscles, once rigid with tension, now softened under her touch. "Ready for an adventure, brave boy?" she murmured, securing his specially padded halter. Phoenix's ears swiveled toward her voice, a response that still made her heart leap with joy. These small signs of engagement were precious victories in their ongoing battle against the shadows of his past. As they stepped out of the barn, Phoenix hesitated at the sight of the transformed landscape. Sarah waited patiently, allowing him to process this new experience at his own pace. His nostrils flared as he caught the crisp winter air, and then, tentatively, he extended his neck to investigate the strange white substance beneath his feet. The first step into the snow was cautious, almost comical in its deliberation. But as Phoenix realized this new surface wouldn't hurt him, his confidence grew. Each footfall created a perfect impression in the untouched snow, marking his progress like a map of courage. Tom watched from nearby, monitoring Phoenix's movement. With a professional eye, "Look at how he's distributing his weight," he observed. "He's starting to remember his natural balance. The muscle memory is coming back." They walked slowly around the sanctuary's perimeter, Phoenix's dark coat contrasting dramatically against the white landscape. Other horses in nearby paddocks watched with interest, including Shadow, who nickered encouragingly from his enclosure. Halfway through their walk, something extraordinary happened. A gentle breeze carried the sound of children's laughter from a neighboring property, and Phoenix's head lifted sharply. But instead of retreating into fear as he once would have, he stood tall, ears forward, showing genuine interest in the world beyond his immediate space. "That's it," Clara whispered, recognizing the significance of this moment. "He's starting to engage with life again. He's remembering there's more to existence than survival." The success of this outing led to a new phase in Phoenix's rehabilitation. Sarah and Clara developed a program that would gradually expose him to more of the world beyond his stall. They created a series of controlled experiences designed to rebuild his confidence and natural curiosity. One such experience involved introducing him to different textures and surfaces. They laid out various materials: rubber mats, wooden boards, even shallow pools of water, creating a sensory pathway that challenged him to trust his instincts and overcome his fears. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Each new challenge he faced seemed to awaken more of his dormant spirit. His eyes, once dull with resignation, now held a spark of intelligence and determination. Even his coat began to change, the proper nutrition and care bringing out a deep, rich sheen that hinted at his true magnificence. During this time, an unexpected visitor arrived at Hope Haven, Dr. Elena Martinez, a renowned equine rehabilitation specialist who had read about Phoenix's case online. She brought with her innovative techniques in emotional healing for traumatized horses. "What we often forget," Dr. Martinez explained, "is that horses are incredibly social beings. Their emotional well-being is just as dependent on connection as their physical health." She suggested incorporating music therapy and aromatherapy into Phoenix's rehabilitation program. The team set up a gentle sound system near his stall, playing classical music during quiet hours. The effect was subtle but noticeable. The soothing melodies seemed to help Phoenix relax, especially during medical treatments or particularly stressful procedures. But perhaps the most significant breakthrough came through his growing friendship with Shadow. The two horses had progressed from sharing a fence line to supervised meetings in the same paddock. Shadow's calm presence acted as a living example, showing Phoenix how to be comfortable in his own skin again. One crisp morning, Sarah arrived early to find the two horses standing together, their heads close, sharing the quiet communion that only horses can understand. As she watched, Phoenix did something she had never seen before. He initiated play, giving Shadow a gentle nudge with his nose. The sight brought tears to her eyes. This simple gesture of playfulness, so natural. For a healthy horse represented a profound healing in Phoenix's traumatized psyche. He wasn't just existing anymore. He was beginning to live again. The news of Phoenix's progress spread through the equestrian community, bringing unexpected support and resources. A local tack shop donated specialized equipment designed for rehabilitation. A master farrier offered his services free of charge, helping to gradually correct Phoenix's neglected hooves. But more importantly, his story began inspiring others. A group of at-risk youth visited the sanctuary as part of their therapy program, and Phoenix's journey resonated deeply with them. They saw in his recovery their own struggles with trust and healing. "See how he keeps trying?" Sarah overheard one teenager say to another as they watched Phoenix work through a particularly challenging therapy session. Even though bad stuff happened to him, he's not giving up. The impact of Phoenix's story reached beyond the sanctuary's boundaries. Local schools began requesting presentations about animal rescue and rehabilitation, using Phoenix's journey as a teaching tool about resilience and compassion. Sarah found herself sharing his story with increasingly diverse audiences, each finding their own meaning in his path to recovery. One day, as winter began to soften into early spring, Sarah witnessed a moment that would forever stay in her heart. During his morning exercise, Phoenix suddenly broke into a spontaneous trot, his first truly free movement since his rescue. The joy in his motion, the natural grace that had been buried beneath years of abuse, emerged like sunshine breaking through clouds. The entire team gathered to watch, their eyes moist with emotion. This wasn't just physical progress. It was the expression of a spirit reclaiming its right to joy. Phoenix circled the paddock, his movements growing more confident with each stride, his tail held high in a flag of triumph. "This," Clara said, softly, "is why we never give up on them, because inside every broken spirit there's a phoenix waiting to rise." That evening, as Sarah completed her final checks, she found Phoenix standing at his window again, but his posture was different. He stood tall, confident, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun was setting in a blaze of color. In that moment, she saw not just how far he had come, but how far he could still go. The chains that had bound him were gone, not just physically, but emotionally. In their place was growing a new kind of bond, one built on trust, respect, and the unshakable belief in the power of second chances. Phoenix was teaching everyone at Hope Haven that the journey from victim to victor was not just possible, but transformative for all involved. As darkness settled over the sanctuary, Sarah made a new entry in her journal. "Today, Phoenix showed us that healing isn't just about recovering what was lost. It's about discovering something even stronger within ourselves. His spirit, once bound by chains of cruelty, now soars free, proving that the greatest victories often come from the deepest wounds." Spring arrived at Hope Haven with an explosion of new life and possibilities. The sanctuary's fields burst into bloom, painting the landscape with wildflowers and fresh grass. For Phoenix, this transformation of his world brought new experiences and challenges that would test the limits of his growing confidence. Sarah arrived one morning to find Phoenix watching a group of butterflies dancing near his window. The sight of him tracking their movements with gentle curiosity, so different from his former vacant stare, made her pause to appreciate how far he'd come. Dr. Martinez's latest evaluation had confirmed what they could all see. Phoenix was ready for the next phase of his rehabilitation. "Today's the day," Sarah announced to her team as they gathered for their morning meeting. "We're going to try something we've never attempted before." The plan was ambitious. They would introduce Phoenix to liberty work, a form of training where horses work without restraints, choosing to interact with humans purely through trust and communication. Clara had spent weeks preparing for this moment, setting up a special round pen with carefully designed features. The footing was soft and secure, the fencing sturdy but not imposing. Everything was arranged to create an environment where Phoenix could feel safe while exploring his newfound freedom. As they led Phoenix to the round pen, Sarah noticed how different his walk had become. Gone was the hesitant shuffle of a broken spirit. In its place was the measured stride of a horse beginning to remember his own power. His head was held higher now, his eyes alert and engaged with his surroundings. The moment of releasing him into the round pen was charged with anticipation. Sarah unclipped his lead rope, stepping back to give him space. For several minutes, Phoenix stood motionless, as if processing this new situation. Then, slowly, he began to explore the perimeter of the pen, his movements deliberate and thoughtful. "Watch his body language," Clara whispered to the small group of observers. "He's not just walking, he's thinking, making choices. This is huge progress." What happened next took everyone's breath away. As Phoenix completed his third circuit of the pen, he suddenly lifted his tail and broke into a controlled canter. The movement was spontaneous, natural, and absolutely beautiful. For the first time, they were seeing him move like a horse who remembered what freedom felt like. Sarah began the liberty work slowly, using gentle gestures and body language to communicate with Phoenix. The goal wasn't to control him, but to invite him to engage in a dance of mutual trust and understanding. At first, Phoenix seemed confused by this new form of interaction. He would start to move towards Sarah, then hesitate, caught between curiosity and ingrained fear. But as the session progressed, something remarkable began to happen. Phoenix started responding to Sarah's subtle cues, not out of obligation or fear, but from a place of genuine interest. When she changed direction, he would follow, maintaining a perfect distance. When she slowed her pace, he matched it. They were developing a language all their own. The breakthrough came when Sarah stopped moving and simply stood in the center of the pen. Phoenix, who had been following her movements, paused. Then, to everyone's amazement, he turned and walked directly toward her, stopping just a few feet away. His choice to approach, made entirely of his own free will, brought tears to more than a few eyes. "That's the moment," Dr. Martinez said softly. "That's when you know they're ready to trust again." The success of this first Liberty session opened new doors in Phoenix's rehabilitation. They began incorporating more sophisticated exercises, each designed to build his confidence and strengthen the bond between horse and handler. But more importantly, these sessions seemed to awaken something deep within Phoenix, a remembrance of his true nature. One afternoon, while working with Phoenix, Sarah received an unexpected visit from Marcus Chen, a renowned equine behaviorist who specialized in helping horses recover from severe trauma. He had heard about Phoenix's progress and wanted to witness it firsthand. "What you're doing here is revolutionary," Marcus observed, as he watched Phoenix move freely around the pen. "Most people wouldn't have had the patience to let him heal at his own pace. They would have rushed the process, probably causing more harm than good." Marcus spent several days at Hope Haven, sharing his expertise and introducing new techniques to enhance Phoenix's rehabilitation. One of his most valuable contributions was the introduction of cognitive enrichment exercises, activities designed to stimulate Phoenix's mind as well as his body. They created obstacle courses that required problem-solving skills, hiding, treats in specially designed puzzles that Phoenix had to figure out how to open. The transformation in his engagement was remarkable. He approached each new challenge with growing confidence, his intelligence shining through as he worked out solutions. The most touching moment came during a rainy afternoon when they had to move their session indoors. In the covered arena, Phoenix encountered something that would have terrified him months ago, a large mirror. Instead of panicking at his reflection, he approached it with careful curiosity, then did something extraordinary. He began to play. Sarah watched in amazement as Phoenix bobbed his head at his reflection, pawing playfully at the ground. It was more than just interaction with his image. It was a display of self-awareness and joy that proved how far he'd come from the broken creature they'd rescued. Word of Phoenix's remarkable recovery began spreading beyond the local community. A documentary filmmaker contacted Hope Haven, interested in telling Phoenix's story. While Sarah was initially hesitant about exposing Phoenix to film crews, she realized his journey could inspire others facing similar challenges. The filming process itself became an unexpected part of Phoenix's therapy. The presence of cameras and crew members provided new experiences for him to process and overcome. To everyone's surprise, he handled the attention with growing confidence, even seeming to enjoy the interaction with new people. During this time, Sarah received news that would add another layer to Phoenix's story. The authorities had finally tracked down his former owner. The investigation revealed a tragic tale of mental illness and financial ruin that had led to Phoenix's neglect. While this didn't excuse the abuse, it added a dimension of understanding that reminded everyone how complex the paths to both suffering and healing could be. The most powerful moment of Phoenix's transformation came during a special event at Hope Haven. The sanctuary had organized a day for other rescue organizations to learn about their rehabilitation techniques. As part of the demonstration, Sarah worked with Phoenix in the Liberty Ring, showing how far he'd come. The connection between them was magical. Phoenix moved in perfect harmony with Sarah's cues, his every movement a testament to the trust they'd built. When she called to him, he came running, his stride powerful and proud. The horse who had once been chained and forgotten was now dancing with joy, his spirit fully awakened. One of the visitors, an experienced trainer, approached Sarah afterward, with tears in her eyes. "I've worked with horses for 30 years, she said, "and I've never seen anything quite like this. You haven't just rehabilitated him, you've helped him find his soul again." That evening, as the sun set over Hope Haven, Sarah sat in Phoenix's paddock, watching him graze peacefully alongside Shadow. The transformation went beyond physical healing. It was visible in every aspect of his being. His eyes were bright and engaged. His coat gleamed with health, and his movements showed the natural grace of a horse who had reclaimed his dignity. A gentle breeze carried the scent of spring flowers, and Phoenix lifted his head, nostrils flaring as he took in the sweet air. In that moment, Sarah realized that their journey together had changed not just Phoenix, but everyone who had witnessed his recovery. He had become a living testament to the power of patience, love, and the unbreakable spirit that refuses to be defined by past trauma. As darkness settled over the sanctuary, Phoenix walked over to where Sarah sat and gently nuzzled her shoulder, a gesture of affection that would have been unthinkable months ago. In his touch was the promise of tomorrow, the assurance that even the deepest wounds could heal, and the reminder that every soul, no matter how broken, deserves the chance to soar again. Summer brought new opportunities for Phoenix's continued growth at Hope Haven. The warmth of the season seemed to infuse him with renewed energy, and his progress was about to take an unexpected turn that would impact not just his life, but the lives of countless others. One particularly bright morning, Sarah arrived to find an unusual visitor waiting at the sanctuary's gate. Dr. Rachel Thompson, a pioneering researcher in equine-assisted therapy, had traveled across the country after hearing about Phoenix's remarkable recovery. Her presence would open a new chapter in Phoenix's journey. "I've read every update about Phoenix," Dr. Thompson explained, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "His story of recovery is extraordinary, but I believe he has even more to give. Have you ever considered him for therapeutic work?" The suggestion took Sarah by surprise. While Phoenix had made incredible progress, the idea of him working with vulnerable people seemed ambitious. Yet as she watched him gracefully moving in his paddock, she remembered how his own journey had already touched so many lives. Dr. Thompson proposed a groundbreaking program, using Phoenix's story and presence to help trauma survivors, particularly children who had experienced abuse or neglect. "Sometimes," she explained, "the best healing comes from those who understand pain firsthand." The program would begin slowly, with careful preparation and assessment. They brought in specialized equipment and modified areas of the sanctuary to create safe spaces for therapeutic sessions. Phoenix would need additional training, but his natural gentleness and newly developed confidence made him an ideal candidate. The first participant in the program was Jamie, a 12-year-old boy who hadn't spoken a word since being removed from an abusive home 6 months earlier. His therapist had suggested equine therapy as a last resort, hoping that connecting with animals might help him open up. When Jamie first arrived at Hope Haven, he kept his eyes downcast, shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself invisible. Sarah and Dr. Thompson led him to Phoenix's paddock, maintaining a respectful distance as the boy took in his surroundings. Phoenix, who had been grazing peacefully, lifted his head at their approach. Something in the boy's posture seemed to catch his attention. With gentle deliberation, Phoenix walked to the fence, stopping a few feet from where Jamie stood. What happened next moved everyone to tears. Jamie slowly lifted his gaze to meet Phoenix's, and in that moment, something profound passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of shared experiences and unspoken pain. To everyone's amazement, Jamie reached out his hand toward Phoenix. The horse lowered his head, letting the boy's small fingers brush against his nose. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Jamie spoke his first words in months. "He understands." This breakthrough marked the beginning of an extraordinary partnership. Word spread about Phoenix's gift for connecting with troubled souls, and soon Hope Haven was receiving requests from therapy programs across the state. Phoenix worked with veterans struggling with PTSD, helping them find peace in his quiet presence. He stood patiently as elderly dementia patients brushed his coat, the rhythmic motion bringing them moments of clarity and joy. But it was with children that his impact was most profound. Each child who came to Phoenix seemed to recognize something in him that adults often missed. They would watch in wonder as Sarah demonstrated liberty work, seeing in Phoenix's free movement a reflection of their own potential for healing and growth. One memorable session involved a group of teenage girls from a residential treatment facility. Many had survived severe trauma and struggled with trust. As they watched Phoenix moving freely in the round pen, responding to Sarah's subtle cues, with willing cooperation, one girl raised her hand. "How did you get him to trust you?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of someone who knew too well how trust could be broken. Sarah shared Phoenix's story, explaining how patience and consistent kindness had gradually helped him heal. "The key," she said, "was letting him choose to trust again. We never forced him. We just showed him that love was possible." The impact of her words was visible on the girls' faces. One of them, tears streaming down her cheeks, whispered, "If he can learn to trust again, maybe I can too." Phoenix's influence extended beyond individual therapy sessions. The sanctuary began hosting workshops for mental health professionals, sharing how Phoenix's rehabilitation techniques could be applied to human trauma recovery. His story became a powerful metaphor for resilience and healing. Dr. Thompson documented everything, gathering data for a groundbreaking study on the parallel processes of recovery in abused animals and humans. "What Phoenix is teaching us," she noted, "is that healing is not just about overcoming past trauma. It's about discovering new ways to connect and thrive." The sanctuary developed a special program called Phoenix Rising, where participants could follow Phoenix's journey from victim to healer. Through carefully structured activities, they learned about trust, boundaries, and the courage to begin again. One of the most powerful aspects of the program was watching Phoenix demonstrate liberty work. Seeing him move freely, choosing to engage with humans out of trust rather than fear, provided a powerful visual metaphor for personal freedom and healing. Sarah noticed how Phoenix seemed to adjust his behavior for different participants. With anxious children, he was extraordinarily gentle, often standing completely still as they gained courage to approach. With more confident individuals, he would show more personality, even initiating playful interactions. The transformation in Phoenix continued to amaze everyone who knew his history. The horse who had once been chained and forgotten was now helping others break free from their own invisible chains. His eyes, once dull with despair, now shone with wisdom and compassion. During one particularly moving session, a young girl who had been severely neglected spent nearly an hour simply sitting near Phoenix as he grazed. No words were spoken, but the healing presence of each other's company spoke volumes. When it was time to leave, she hugged Phoenix's neck and whispered, "Thank you for showing me that bad things don't last forever." As summer progressed, hope. Haven began receiving recognition from the therapeutic community. Phoenix's success sparked discussions about expanding their programs and developing new approaches to trauma recovery. Other sanctuaries reached out, eager to learn how they could implement similar programs. One evening, as Sarah watched Phoenix moving freely in the sunset-lit paddock, she reflected on how far they had come. The broken horse they had rescued had not only healed, but had become a healer himself. His journey had evolved into something far more meaningful than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Thompson, who had been documenting Phoenix's work, put it beautifully. "Sometimes the deepest wounds create the greatest capacity for healing others." Phoenix doesn't just show us how to survive trauma, he shows us how to transform it into something beautiful. As night fell over Hope Haven, Phoenix stood at his favorite spot by the fence, his noble profile silhouetted against the darkening sky. He was no longer just a rescue success story. He had become a beacon of hope, showing others that even the darkest experiences could lead to a greater purpose. The chains that had once bound him had become bridges, connecting him to others who needed his gentle wisdom. His story had become a testament to the extraordinary capacity of the heart to not only heal, but to help heal others. In finding his own path to freedom, Phoenix had become a guide for countless others seeking their way back to light. As autumn painted Hope Haven in vibrant hues of gold and crimson, an unexpected opportunity arose that would challenge Phoenix in ways no one had anticipated. A prestigious equine rehabilitation center in Colorado had heard of Phoenix's remarkable work with trauma survivors and extended an invitation that would test the limits of his transformation. The center, nestled in the Rocky Mountains, specialized in innovative therapeutic programs for both horses and humans. They wanted Phoenix to be the centerpiece of a groundbreaking initiative combining trauma recovery with wilderness therapy. The program would involve working with at-risk youth in a natural mountain setting. Sarah stood in Phoenix's paddock, the invitation letter in her hands, watching him interact with a group of young therapy patients. The decision weighed heavily on her mind. The program offered an incredible opportunity to expand Phoenix's impact, but it would mean temporarily leaving the safety and familiarity of Hope Haven. Dr. Thompson, who had become a regular presence at the sanctuary, offered her perspective. "Think about how far he's come," she said, watching Phoenix gently following a child's lead through an obstacle course. "Maybe this is the next step in his journey, showing others that healing doesn't stop with survival." The preparation for the mountain program would be intensive. Phoenix would need to adjust to higher altitudes, different terrain, and new challenges. Sarah worked with a specialized trainer to develop a conditioning program that would prepare him physically and mentally for the mountain environment. They began with simulated experiences, creating varying terrain in the training areas. Phoenix proved remarkably adaptable, approaching each new challenge with growing confidence. His ability to remain calm in unfamiliar situations, a far cry from the terrified horse they had rescued, amazed everyone. The transformation in his physicality was stunning. His muscles had developed beautifully, his coat gleamed with health, and his movements showed the natural grace of a horse who had reclaimed his power. But it was his eyes that told the real story, clear, bright, and filled with an intelligence that seemed to understand the importance of his work. A week before their scheduled departure, an unexpected visitor arrived at Hope Haven. James Martinez, a former Navy SEAL struggling with PTSD, had heard about Phoenix through the Veterans Support Network. Despite not being scheduled for a session, Sarah felt compelled to let him meet Phoenix. The connection was immediate and profound. James, who had difficulty relating to traditional therapy, found something in Phoenix's presence that broke through his defenses. "He carries his scars with dignity," James observed, watching Phoenix move freely in the paddock. "He's not ashamed of his past, but he doesn't let it define him either." This encounter solidified Sarah's decision about the mountain program. If Phoenix could have such an impact in controlled environments, imagine what he could achieve in the healing space of the wilderness. The journey to Colorado was carefully planned. They would travel in stages, allowing Phoenix to acclimate gradually. A specialized transport company, experienced in moving therapy horses, was enlisted to ensure his comfort and safety. The morning of departure brought mixed emotions to Hope Haven. The sanctuary's residents, both human and equine, seemed to sense the significance of the moment. Shadow, Phoenix's longtime companion, stood at the fence line, watching as they prepared for the journey. As Sarah led Phoenix to the trailer, she noticed something remarkable. Rather than showing anxiety about the unknown, he walked with confident curiosity, his head held high. This wasn't the same horse who had once trembled at the sight of a lead rope. This was a horse who had learned to trust in his own strength. The journey took 3 days, with overnight stops at partner facilities. At each location, Phoenix's presence had an unexpected impact. Other rescued horses seemed drawn to his calm energy, and people were moved by his story of transformation. Their arrival at the mountain center was met with anticipation. The facility was breathtaking, nestled in a valley surrounded by towering peaks, with vast meadows and pristine forests. Phoenix surveyed his new surroundings with keen interest, his nostrils flaring as he took in the mountain air. The center's program was innovative, combining traditional equine therapy with wilderness experiences. Participants would work with Phoenix in natural settings, using the challenges of the mountain environment as metaphors for their own journey of healing. The first session in the mountains proved transformative. A group of teenagers, all survivors of severe trauma, hiked to a meadow where Phoenix waited. The combination of his gentle presence and the majestic setting created an atmosphere of profound peace. One girl, who had been resistant to traditional therapy, found herself opening up as she walked alongside Phoenix on a mountain trail. "It's like he knows," she said softly. "He doesn't push or judge. He just walks with you, letting you find your own way." The mountain program revealed new dimensions of Phoenix's healing abilities. In the wilderness setting, away from the constraints of traditional therapy spaces, both he and the participants seemed to find a deeper level of connection. A particularly powerful moment came during a session with a group of veterans. As they stood in a high mountain meadow, a sudden thunderstorm approached. Instead of panicking, Phoenix remained calm, providing an anchor for the veterans who struggled with unexpected situations. His steady presence helped them work through their own stress responses. Sarah watched in amazement as Phoenix adapted to each new challenge. He navigated rocky trails with sure-footed confidence, remained calm during sudden weather changes, and showed an uncanny ability to match his energy to each participant's needs. The program's success led to an unexpected development. Other therapy centers began requesting training in what they called the Phoenix Protocol, a combination of wilderness therapy, equine connection, and trauma recovery techniques. As word spread, researchers arrived to document the program's impact. They found that the combination of Phoenix's gentle presence and the wilderness setting created optimal conditions for healing. Participants showed significant improvements in trust, emotional regulation, and self-confidence. One afternoon, as snow began to dust the mountain peaks, Sarah watched Phoenix leading a group along a high trail. The sight of him moving freely through this majestic landscape, helping others find their path to healing, brought tears to her eyes. The chained and broken horse they had rescued had become something extraordinary, a guide for others seeking their way back to freedom. The mountain program lasted 3 months, during which Phoenix worked with over 100 participants. Each person who encountered him took away something unique, a moment of connection, a glimpse of hope, or a deeper understanding of their own strength. On their final day in the mountains, the center organized a special ceremony. Participants from throughout the program gathered to share how their encounters with Phoenix had impacted their lives. Their stories formed a tapestry of healing, hope, and transformation. As they prepared for the journey back to Hope Haven, Sarah realized that Phoenix had achieved something remarkable. He had shown that healing wasn't just about overcoming past trauma. It was about using that experience to light the way for others. The sun was setting behind the mountains as they loaded Phoenix into the trailer for the journey home. He turned his head toward the peaks one last time, as if saying goodbye to a place that had helped him discover yet another layer of his extraordinary spirit. The legacy of the mountain program would continue long after their departure. Phoenix had shown that the journey from victim to healer could lead to unexpected heights, and that sometimes the steepest paths led to the most profound transformation. The return to Hope Haven marked the beginning of an unexpected new chapter in Phoenix's journey. The experiences in the mountains had awakened something profound in him, a deeper capacity for healing that would soon touch lives in ways no one could have predicted. Winter had settled over the sanctuary, transforming it into a crystalline wonderland. On a crisp December morning, Sarah received a call that would set in motion another remarkable transformation. The local children's hospital was developing an innovative program for young patients facing life-threatening illnesses, and they had heard about Phoenix's extraordinary ability to connect with those in pain. Dr. Emily Chen, the hospital's chief of pediatric oncology, visited Hope Haven to discuss the possibility of bringing Phoenix's healing presence to children who couldn't travel to the sanctuary. The challenge seemed daunting. How could they recreate the magic of Phoenix's connection in a clinical setting? These children need something beyond medical treatment, Dr. Chen explained, watching Phoenix interact with a therapy group. They need hope. A reason to keep fighting. Your horse seems to have a gift for awakening that spark in people. The solution came in an unexpected form. A tech company specializing in virtual reality had developed a portable system that could bring the sanctuary experience to bedridden patients. They would combine live video feeds of Phoenix with interactive VR elements, allowing children to feel as if they were actually at Hope Haven. The first trial session was with Maya, a 7-year-old battling leukemia. Too weak to leave her hospital room, she watched through VR goggles as Phoenix moved through his daily routines at the sanctuary. Sarah stood beside him, narrating his story and guiding him through gentle exercises. When Phoenix approached the camera and softly nickered, Maya's face lit up with pure joy. "He's talking to me," she exclaimed, reaching out as if to touch him through the screen. That moment of connection, bridging the gap between hospital room and sanctuary, proved the power of their new approach. The program expanded rapidly. Children who'd been withdrawn and depressed began looking forward to their virtual visits with Phoenix. The medical staff reported improved responses to treatment, better sleep patterns, and increased emotional resilience among participants. Phoenix seemed to understand the importance of these sessions. He would approach the cameras with gentle curiosity, sometimes standing still for long periods, as if sensing that somewhere a child needed his calm presence. His intuitive responses to the children's voices coming through the speakers amazed even those who knew him best. The success of the virtual program led to an innovative addition. For children who were strong enough, the hospital created a special sanctuary room designed to simulate the peaceful environment of Hope Haven. The walls were painted with murals of the sanctuary's rolling hills, and screens showed live feeds of the horses grazing in their paddocks. This room became a haven within the hospital, a place where young patients could escape the clinical atmosphere and connect with Phoenix's healing spirit. The impact was profound, not just on the children, but on their families as well. One particularly moving case involved twins, both battling different forms of cancer. Through their virtual sessions with Phoenix, they found strength in his story of overcoming adversity. Their mother later shared that the twins would encourage each other during difficult treatments by asking, "What would Phoenix do?" The hospital program revealed yet another dimension of Phoenix's healing abilities. He began showing an uncanny sense for when patients needed different types of energy. With some children, he would be playful and engaging. With others, he would stand quietly, offering a peaceful presence. Dr. Thompson, who had been documenting Phoenix's work, noted something remarkable. He seems to understand that healing isn't one size fits all. Each person's journey is unique, and Phoenix adapts his approach accordingly. The impact of Phoenix's work extended beyond the children. Parents, siblings, and hospital staff found comfort in his virtual presence. Many reported that just watching him move freely through the sanctuary grounds brought a sense of peace during stressful times. As winter deepened, Sarah worked with the tech team to develop new ways of sharing Phoenix's healing presence. They created interactive sessions where children could guide Phoenix through simple Liberty work exercises using specially designed controllers. This element of engagement added a powerful therapeutic dimension to the program. One breakthrough came with Alex, a teenage patient who had stopped responding to anyone after a particularly difficult round of treatment. During a virtual session, he watched Phoenix working through an obstacle course. Suddenly, he began offering suggestions for new challenges to add to the course. It was his first voluntary interaction in weeks. The medical staff began incorporating Phoenix's sessions into their treatment protocols. They noticed that children were more cooperative with difficult procedures if they knew they had a virtual visit with Phoenix to look forward to. His presence became a source of motivation and comfort throughout their medical journeys. A researcher studying the program's effects made an interesting observation. The children don't just see Phoenix as a therapy animal, they see him as a fellow warrior. His story of overcoming trauma and finding purpose resonates deeply with their own battles. The success of the hospital program attracted attention from medical centers around the country. Sarah and Dr. Chen began developing guidelines for implementing similar programs in other facilities. Phoenix's influence was expanding far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. One day, while reviewing video footage from the sessions, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. Phoenix had developed different ways of interacting with the cameras based on the needs of the children watching. For excited, energetic patients, he would show more animation. For those needing calm, he would demonstrate peaceful grazing or gentle movement. The winter months brought a special project, a children's book about Phoenix's journey, designed specifically for young patients. The book combined photographs with gentle messages about courage, healing, and hope. Each chapter ended with a simple meditation exercise inspired by Phoenix's calm presence. The book became a favorite among the young patients, who would often request to hear Phoenix's story during difficult treatments. One nurse reported that children would hold the book during procedures, drawing strength from the images of Phoenix standing tall and free. As the program evolved, they began incorporating seasonal changes at the sanctuary into the therapeutic experience. Children watched as Phoenix played in the snow, teaching them about adapting to change and finding joy in new situations. His natural resilience became a powerful metaphor for their own journeys. A particularly touching moment came during a group session with the oncology ward. As the children watched Phoenix moving through a snow-covered paddock, one little girl observed, "He's like the snow. He makes everything feel clean and new again." The impact of Phoenix's work with the hospital program reached beyond immediate medical outcomes. Families reported that their children carried the lessons learned from Phoenix into their broader lives. His example of turning trauma into triumph became a blueprint for their own healing journeys. As winter began to soften toward spring, Sarah reflected on how far Phoenix had come from those early days of rescue. The horse, who had once been chained and forgotten, had become a beacon of hope for countless children fighting their own battles. His journey had evolved into something far more profound than anyone could have imagined. A living testament to the healing power of unconditional love and unwavering spirit. The sun setting over Hope Haven cast long shadows across the snow-covered grounds where Phoenix stood watching the horizon. In his quiet strength, in his gentle wisdom, in his capacity to connect with wounded souls, he had become more than just a therapy horse. He had become a teacher, showing everyone who encountered him that the deepest wounds could become the greatest gifts to share with others. Spring brought an unexpected development to Hope Haven that would push Phoenix's healing abilities in a new direction. A renowned filmmaker, Isabella Martinez, arrived at the sanctuary with a vision to create a documentary series that would share Phoenix's extraordinary journey with the world. But this wouldn't be just another animal rescue story. Isabella saw something deeper in Phoenix's transformation. The project began on a misty morning as Isabella's cameras captured Phoenix moving through his daily routines. What struck the film crew immediately was his presence. The way he carried himself with quiet dignity, so different from the broken creature in the photographs from his rescue. "There's something almost mythical about him," Isabella observed, watching Phoenix interact with a group of therapy participants. "It's like he embodies every story of transformation ever told." The documentary series would focus not just on Phoenix's past, but on the ripple effect his healing had created. They began interviewing people whose lives had been touched by his presence. The children from the hospital program, veterans who had found peace in his company, and families who had witnessed his impact on their loved ones. One particularly powerful segment featured a reunion of sorts. James, the Navy SEAL who had connected with Phoenix before the mountain program, returned to Hope Haven with a group of fellow veterans. The cameras captured their first group session with Phoenix, revealing how his presence helped break down barriers that traditional therapy hadn't been able to touch. "It's not just that he survived," one veteran explained, his voice thick with emotion. "It's that he found a way to turn his pain into purpose. That's what we're all trying to do." The filming process itself became therapeutic. Isabella's approach was unique. She set up meditation spaces around the sanctuary where people could reflect on their experiences with Phoenix before sharing them on camera. This created a depth of storytelling that went beyond simple interviews. Sarah watched in amazement as Phoenix adapted to the presence of cameras and crew. Rather than being disturbed by the equipment, he seemed to understand its purpose, often positioning himself perfectly for shots that captured his interaction with therapy participants. The documentary team discovered something fascinating while reviewing footage. During therapy sessions, Phoenix would often mirror the body language of the person he was working with, tense with those who were anxious, gentle with those who were fragile, playful with those who needed joy. This unconscious empathy became a central theme of the series. Dr. Thompson contributed her research findings to the project, sharing data that showed the measurable impact of Phoenix's work. Brain scans of therapy participants revealed significant changes in areas associated with trauma and emotional regulation after sessions with him. The series also explored the scientific aspects of equine-assisted therapy, explaining how horses' natural empathy and non-verbal communication made them ideal partners in emotional healing. Phoenix's story served as a powerful example of the deep connection possible between humans and animals. One episode focused on the sanctuary's youth program, where troubled teens worked with Phoenix as part of their rehabilitation. The cameras captured a breakthrough moment when a young girl, silent for months after a traumatic experience, began speaking again while grooming Phoenix. "He doesn't judge," she explained later in her first full interview. "When you're with him, you don't feel broken, you just feel understood." The filming process revealed new aspects of Phoenix's character. During a session with a group of anxiety patients, a sudden thunderstorm broke out. Instead of seeking shelter, Phoenix remained in the paddock, providing a calm presence that helped the group work through their panic. The moment, captured on camera, became a powerful metaphor for facing fears. Isabella's team also documented Phoenix's work with professional therapists, showing how his presence enhanced traditional therapeutic techniques. One therapist noted how clients would open up more readily when Phoenix was nearby, as if his own journey from trauma to healing gave them permission to explore their own. The series highlighted the innovative aspects of Phoenix's therapy work: the virtual reality program for hospital patients, the wilderness therapy in the mountains, and the new techniques developed at Hope Haven. Each episode showed how his influence had sparked evolution in the field of animal-assisted therapy. A particularly moving segment featured a gathering of families whose lives had been touched by Phoenix. They came together at Hope Haven to share their stories and celebrate the changes they'd experienced. The diversity of their experiences, from physical rehabilitation to emotional healing, demonstrated the breadth of Phoenix's impact. The documentary crew captured a remarkable moment during this gathering. A young boy who had been paralyzed in an accident was helped onto Phoenix's back for the first time. The joy on his face as they moved slowly around the paddock brought tears to everyone's eyes. His mother later shared that it was the first time since the accident that she'd seen him fully present in the moment. As filming progressed, Isabella began to notice patterns in the stories people shared. Whether they were dealing with physical injuries, emotional trauma, or life-threatening illness, each person spoke of how Phoenix had helped them rediscover their own strength. The series also explored the ripple effects of Phoenix's work. Other sanctuaries began adopting Hope Haven's methods, creating their own programs based on the Phoenix Protocol. The documentary showed how his influence was spreading, creating a network of healing spaces across the country. One episode focused on the science of trauma and recovery, using Phoenix's story to illustrate key concepts. Experts explained how his journey from victim to healer paralleled the human experience of post-traumatic growth. The idea that trauma, when properly processed, could lead to profound positive change. The filming process culminated in a special event at Hope Haven, where participants from various programs came together to celebrate Phoenix's impact on their lives. The cameras captured the extraordinary sight of people from all walks of life, united by their connection to one remarkable horse. During the event, Sarah noticed something profound. Phoenix moved through the crowd with grace and purpose, seeming to know exactly who needed his presence at any given moment. He would pause beside someone in tears, offer gentle encouragement to someone struggling with mobility, or provide playful energy to someone fighting depression. The final episode of the series focused on the future, how Phoenix's legacy would continue to influence the field of therapeutic healing. Plans were already in motion to establish a training center at Hope Haven, where other sanctuaries could learn to implement similar programs. As the filming wrapped up, Isabella shared her perspective. What we've captured here isn't just a story about a horse who overcame trauma. It's about the extraordinary capacity for healing that exists in all of us, and how one being's journey to wholeness can light the way for countless others. The sun was setting on the last day of filming when something magical happened. Phoenix, who had been grazing peacefully, suddenly lifted his head and began running through the paddock, his movements powerful and free. The cameras captured his expression, ears forward, eyes bright, mane flowing in the wind, a perfect image of joy and liberation. This final shot would become the series' signature moment, symbolizing not just Phoenix's transformation, but the potential for renewal that existed in every wounded soul who found their way to Hope Haven. His story, now preserved on film, would continue to inspire and heal long into the future. The release of the documentary series about Phoenix created a wave of change that swept through the therapeutic riding community. Hope Haven found itself at the center of a movement, with requests pouring in from around the world for guidance in implementing similar programs. But it was an unexpected visitor who would lead Phoenix's journey in yet another profound direction. Dr. Amelia Foster, a pioneering researcher in intergenerational trauma, arrived at the sanctuary one morning, her interest piqued by something she had observed in the documentary. She had noticed how Phoenix's presence seemed to heal not just individuals, but entire family systems. What if we could create a program that addresses trauma across generations? She proposed to Sarah. Something that brings together grandparents, parents, and children who have all been impacted by shared traumatic experiences. The concept was revolutionary. Most therapy programs worked with individuals or single-family units, but Dr. Foster envisioned something more comprehensive. Phoenix would be the bridge between generations, helping families understand and heal from patterns of trauma that had been passed down through years. The first family to participate in this new program was the Rodriguez clan, 3 generations affected by a history of domestic violence. Gloria, the grandmother, carried decades of silent pain. Her daughter Maria struggled with anxiety and trust issues, And young Sophia, just 12, was already showing signs of inheriting these emotional patterns. Their first session with Phoenix was carefully structured. Instead of working with each family member separately, they were brought together in the round pen. Phoenix's response was remarkable. He moved between the three generations with intuitive grace, seeming to understand the invisible threads that connected their pain. As Gloria watched Phoenix interact with Sophia, something shifted in her expression. "He moves like he's carrying a heavy weight," she observed, "but he doesn't let it stop him." This insight opened a powerful conversation about the burdens each generation had carried and the strength required to move forward. The program evolved to include specific exercises designed to address generational patterns. Families would work together to guide Phoenix through obstacle courses, each obstacle representing a challenge they had faced. The way they communicated and supported each other during these exercises revealed deeply ingrained patterns. One particularly powerful technique involved what they called timeline work. Family members would stand at different points around the arena, each position representing a significant moment in their shared history. Phoenix would walk with each person as they shared their perspective on these events, creating a physical representation of their journey through time. The impact was profound. Watching Phoenix move freely between past and present helped families understand how their histories had shaped them without defining their futures. His own transformation from victim to healer became a living metaphor for their potential to break destructive cycles. Word of this innovative approach spread quickly. Mental health professionals began incorporating elements of the Phoenix Protocol for generational healing into their practice. The sanctuary started offering training, programs for therapists interested in using similar techniques with their own clients. A touching breakthrough came with the Sullivan family, whose history of addiction had affected 4 generations. During a session with Phoenix, the youngest member, 8-year-old Tommy, observed something that stunned everyone. "Phoenix doesn't carry his old chains anymore," he said, "so maybe we don't have to carry ours." The wisdom of this child's observation became a cornerstone of the program. Families began to understand that while they couldn't change their history, they could choose how to carry it forward. Phoenix's example showed them that trauma could be transformed into wisdom and strength. Dr. Foster's research team documented remarkable changes in participating families. They observed improved communication patterns, increased empathy between generations, and a reduction in anxiety and depression symptoms across all age groups. But perhaps most significantly, they noted a breaking of the silence that often surrounded family trauma. The program expanded to include creative elements. Families would work together to create art, inspired by their sessions with Phoenix, expressing, through color and form, what they couldn't say in words. These pieces were displayed in a special gallery at Hope Haven, creating a visual testimony to the journey of healing across generations. Phoenix's role in this work seemed to deepen his own healing. Sarah noticed how he would adapt his energy to match the needs of each family group, sometimes being playful and energetic, other times offering a steady, calming presence. His intuitive understanding of family dynamics amazed even the most experienced therapists. One memorable session involved a family dealing with the aftermath of war trauma. The grandfather, a Vietnam veteran, had never spoken about his experiences. But watching Phoenix demonstrate liberty work, moving freely yet remaining connected to his handler, opened something in him. "That's what I've been trying to find," he said quietly. Freedom without losing connection. The program began, incorporating elements of nature therapy, using the changing seasons at Hope Haven as metaphors for family transformation. Spring sessions focused on new beginnings, summer on growth and flourishing, autumn on letting go, and winter on finding strength in difficult times. During one winter session, a family watched as Phoenix rolled in fresh snow, playfully shaking it off afterward. A teenage participant observed, "He shows us it's okay to play even when things are cold and hard." This simple insight led to a breakthrough discussion about finding joy despite difficult circumstances. The documentary team returned to film a follow-up episode focusing on the generational healing program. They captured powerful moments of transformation, like when 3 generations of women worked together to guide Phoenix through a complex pattern, their movements becoming a dance of healing and connection. Sarah and Dr. Foster began developing a training manual for other facilities interested in implementing similar programs. They emphasized the importance of understanding both equine psychology and family systems theory, showing how Phoenix's intuitive responses could guide therapeutic interventions. The impact of the program extended beyond individual families. Communities began reporting positive changes as healed families brought their new understanding and skills into their neighborhoods, workplaces, and schools. The ripple effect of Phoenix's influence continued to grow in unexpected ways. One morning, as Sarah watched Phoenix working with a new family group, she realized something profound. The horse, who had once been chained and isolated, had become a master teacher of connection and freedom. His journey from trauma to healing had created a pathway for others to follow, not just individually, but across generations. As the sun set, on another day of transformative work, Phoenix stood in his favorite spot overlooking the sanctuary. The families who had worked with him that day had left changed, carrying with them new tools for breaking old patterns and building healthier futures. His presence had helped them see that healing was not just possible for individuals, but for entire family trees. The legacy of his work would continue to grow, touching lives far beyond the boundaries of Hope Haven. In helping families heal their generational wounds, Phoenix had shown that the journey from trauma to transformation was not just an individual path, but one that could bridge the gaps between past, present, and future. As summer approached, Hope Haven prepared for an unprecedented event that would showcase the full scope of Phoenix's impact. The International Equine Therapy Symposium had chosen the sanctuary as its host site, bringing together experts, researchers, and practitioners from around the world to witness the revolutionary healing methods that had evolved through Phoenix's journey. The sanctuary underwent a subtle transformation to accommodate the upcoming gathering. New observation areas were constructed, designed to allow visitors to witness therapy sessions without disturbing the delicate interactions between Phoenix and his patients. The preparations triggered memories in Sarah of how far they had come from those first uncertain days of rescue. Dr. Elena Santos, a pioneering researcher in trauma studies, arrived early to help coordinate the scientific presentations. Her recent studies had focused on what she called the Phoenix effect, the unique way in which trauma survivors who worked with Phoenix seemed to heal more quickly and completely than those in traditional therapy programs. "There's something extraordinary happening here," Dr. Santos explained while reviewing her data. "It's not just about recovery, it's about complete transformation. These people aren't just healing, they're discovering entirely new possibilities for their lives." The symposium opened with a powerful demonstration. Phoenix worked with a group of first responders suffering from PTSD, showcasing how his presence helped them process trauma in ways traditional therapy hadn't achieved. The observers watched in amazement as hardened emergency workers found emotional release through their interaction with the gentle giant. One firefighter struggling with memories of a particularly devastating blaze found himself drawn to Phoenix's quiet strength. "He doesn't try to fix you," the man explained to the gathered audience, his voice thick with emotion. "He just stands with you in the darkness until you find your own light." The scientific presentations revealed fascinating insights into the neurological impact of Phoenix's work. Brain scans showed how interaction with him triggered the release of healing hormones while reducing stress markers. But it was the long-term changes that most intrigued researchers. The way these interactions seemed to rewire trauma responses permanently. A groundbreaking session focused on Phoenix's work with children on the autism spectrum. His ability to communicate without words had opened new pathways for children who struggled with verbal expression. Video presentations showed remarkable moments of connection where children who rarely engaged with others found ways to express themselves through their interaction with Phoenix. During the symposium, a special moment occurred that no one had anticipated. A group of Phoenix's former patients, people who had worked with him throughout his years of service, organized a surprise gathering. They came from across the country, each carrying stories of how their lives had changed through their encounters with him. Among them was Jamie, the first child who had spoken to Phoenix during his early therapy work. Now a teenager, he had become an advocate for animal-assisted therapy, sharing his story to help others understand the healing power of the human-animal bond. The symposium also introduced new technologies that had been developed through Phoenix's work. The virtual reality program that had brought his healing presence to hospital patients had evolved into a sophisticated system being implemented in medical centers worldwide. Children who couldn't leave their hospital rooms could now experience the peace of Hope Haven through immersive technology. Researchers presented studies showing how Phoenix's methods had influenced the broader field of trauma recovery. His approach to healing, gentle, patient, and completely accepting, had inspired new protocols in psychological treatment. The Phoenix Protocol was being taught in medical schools and therapy programs across the globe. One afternoon, during a break in presentations, something extraordinary happened. A sudden summer storm swept through the sanctuary, sending participants hurrying for shelter. Phoenix, however, remained calm in his paddock, and several trauma survivors spontaneously joined him there. The sight of them standing peacefully in the rain, finding strength in his tranquil presence, became a powerful symbol of resilience. The symposium's focus shifted to the future of equine-assisted therapy. Plans were unveiled for a network of sanctuaries based on the Hope Haven model, each designed to continue Phoenix's legacy of healing. These centers would incorporate all the elements that had made his work so effective, from wilderness therapy to intergenerational healing programs. A particularly moving presentation came from Dr. Foster, who shared the results of her generational trauma study. Families who had worked with Phoenix showed remarkable improvements, not just in their current relationships, but in their ability to break cycles of trauma that had persisted for generations. The event attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Policymakers and healthcare administrators attended sessions, recognizing the potential for these methods to revolutionize mental health treatment. Insurance companies began discussing coverage for equine-assisted therapy, citing the overwhelming evidence of its effectiveness. Throughout the symposium, Phoenix continued his daily work with patients, seemingly unaffected by the attention surrounding him. His quiet dignity and unwavering focus on those who needed him spoke volumes about the pure nature of his healing gift. One evening, as the sun set over Hope Haven, Sarah led a special session demonstrating Phoenix's liberty. The gathered experts watched in awe as he moved through complex patterns without any physical guidance, responding solely to subtle body language and energy. It was a beautiful demonstration of the trust and connection that formed the foundation of his therapeutic work. The symposium concluded with an unprecedented ceremony. The gathered experts, researchers, and practitioners came together to establish the Phoenix Institute for Healing Studies, a global organization dedicated to advancing the understanding and application of animal-assisted therapy in trauma recovery. As participants prepared to depart, carrying with them new knowledge and inspiration, Phoenix stood at his favorite observation point, surveying the sanctuary. The setting sun caught his coat, highlighting the subtle scars that remained from his years in chains, marks that now served as testament to the possibility of transformation. Sarah reflected on how their journey together had grown from a simple rescue into a movement that was changing the face of therapy. Phoenix had shown that the deepest wounds could become the greatest sources of healing, not just for individuals, but for the wider world. The legacy of the symposium would continue to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond Hope Haven's boundaries. Phoenix had become more than a therapy horse. He was a pioneer, showing the way toward new possibilities in healing and transformation. As darkness settled over the sanctuary, Phoenix's peaceful presence reminded everyone that the greatest healers often emerge from the deepest wounds, and that sometimes the most profound transformations begin with a simple act of kindness toward a chained and forgotten soul. The stars emerged one by one, mirroring the lights of hope that Phoenix had ignited in countless hearts. His journey from victim to healer had become a beacon, showing others that their own paths through darkness could lead to unexpected light. The aftermath of the International Equine Therapy Symposium brought an unexpected development to Hope Haven. A prestigious medical research facility proposed a groundbreaking study that would explore the physiological impact of Phoenix's healing presence on those struggling with treatment-resistant conditions. Dr. Rebecca Chen, a leading neuroscientist specializing in mind-body connections, arrived at the sanctuary with state-of-the-art equipment designed to measure subtle changes in patients' biological responses during their interactions with Phoenix. Her hypothesis was revolutionary, that Phoenix's unique energy field might trigger healing mechanisms previously unknown to medical science. "We've observed remarkable recoveries in patients who work with Phoenix," Dr. Chen explained, while setting up her equipment. "Now, we want to understand the science behind these transformations. What makes his presence so powerfully therapeutic?" The study began with a focus on individuals battling chronic pain conditions. Using advanced biosensors, Dr. Chen's team monitored participants' vital signs, stress hormones, and neural activity during their sessions with Phoenix. The results were astounding. One participant, Margaret Wilson, had suffered from fibromyalgia for decades. During her first session with Phoenix, the sensors detected significant changes in her pain indicators. "It's like he knows exactly where the pain is," she marveled. "When he stands near me, it's as if the pain recedes, replaced by a sense of warmth and peace." The research expanded to include patients with autoimmune disorders, finding that interaction with Phoenix seemed to modulate their inflammatory responses. Blood tests showed measurable changes in immune markers after just a few sessions, suggesting his presence might influence the body's healing mechanisms at a cellular level. A particularly fascinating case involved Kevin Zhang, a young athlete struggling to recover from a traumatic brain injury. Traditional therapies had yielded limited results, but his sessions with Phoenix produced remarkable improvements in his balance, coordination, and cognitive function. "There's something about his rhythm," Kevin's neurologist observed. "The way Phoenix moves seems to help patients rediscover their own natural patterns of movement and thought. It's as if he provides a template for healing that the body instinctively recognizes." The study attracted attention from alternative medicine practitioners who saw in Phoenix's work validation of ancient healing principles. They noted how his presence seemed to align with traditional concepts of energy medicine, yet produced results that could be measured and verified by modern science. Sarah watched these developments with a mixture of wonder and protective concern. While she supported the research, she ensured that Phoenix's well-being remained the primary focus. His schedule was carefully balanced to prevent exhaustion, and he was given ample time to rest and rejuvenate between sessions. The research took an unexpected turn when Dr. Chen discovered that Phoenix's impact extended beyond direct physical contact. Patients in nearby rooms showed improved vital signs, even when they could only hear his movements or gentle vocalizations. This led to a new phase of study, exploring the reach of his healing influence. A breakthrough came during work with cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy. Those who spent time with Phoenix before their treatments reported significantly fewer side effects and maintained higher energy levels throughout their recovery process. Oncologists began incorporating sessions with him into their treatment protocols. The sanctuary adapted to accommodate these new discoveries. Special meditation. Areas were created where patients could rest in Phoenix's healing presence, while the research team monitored their physiological responses. The results showed consistent patterns of reduced stress hormones and increased production of natural pain-relieving compounds. One morning, during a session with a group of chronic pain patients, something extraordinary occurred. As Phoenix moved among them, the monitoring equipment detected a synchronization of their heart rhythms, not just with each other, but with his own steady, peaceful rhythm. Dr. Chen called it harmonic healing resonance. The implications of this discovery were profound. It suggested that Phoenix's presence could facilitate a kind of physiological harmony that promoted natural healing processes. This finding led to new therapeutic approaches that combined traditional medical treatments with carefully structured time in his presence. The research expanded to include studies of epigenetic changes, how interaction with Phoenix might influence the expression of genes related to healing and stress response. The results suggested that his presence could actually help activate beneficial genetic patterns while suppressing those associated with inflammation and disease. A touching demonstration of his healing power came through work with elderly patients suffering from dementia. While in Phoenix's presence, many showed improved cognitive function and emotional awareness. Family members reported moments of lucidity and connection that had seemed impossible before. The sanctuary began collaborating with hospitals to develop protocols for integrating Phoenix's healing modalities into conventional medical treatment. His successful work with chemotherapy patients led to the creation of special programs for individuals undergoing various forms of medical treatment. One particularly moving case involved a young dancer, Sophia Martinez, who had lost the use of her legs in an accident. During her sessions with Phoenix, monitors showed increased neural activity in her damaged spinal pathways. Over time, she began regaining sensation and movement, defying her doctor's predictions. "Phoenix doesn't see limitations," Sophia explained to Dr. Chen's team. "When I'm with him, I don't feel broken. It's like he reminds my body how to heal itself." The research revealed another fascinating aspect of Phoenix's healing ability: his capacity to adapt his energy to each patient's needs. Monitoring equipment showed how his own biological rhythms would shift subtly to match those of the person he was working with, creating an optimal environment for healing. This discovery led to new understanding of the role of resonance in healing. Medical professionals began to see how Phoenix's intuitive ability to attune to others could inform their own approaches to patient care. His work became a bridge between traditional medicine and more holistic healing practices. As the study progressed, Dr. Chen's team documented cases of recovery that challenged conventional medical understanding. Patients with chronic conditions often showed improvement that continued long after their sessions with Phoenix ended, suggesting his presence triggered lasting changes in their body's healing mechanisms. The research also explored the environmental impact of Phoenix's presence. The team found that the air around him contained elevated levels of negative ions, particles associated with improved mood and reduced inflammation. This led to studies of how his presence might influence the healing environment itself. One evening, as the research team was reviewing their findings, they witnessed something remarkable. A group of patients who had been working with Phoenix gathered spontaneously in his paddock. As they stood quietly with him, their biosensors showed a synchronized pattern of healing responses, as if they were all being lifted by a common wave of restoration. The implications of the research extended beyond individual healing. Hospitals began redesigning their therapeutic spaces based on principles observed in Phoenix's work. The importance of creating environments that supported natural healing processes became more widely recognized. As the sun set on another day of groundbreaking research, Sarah watched Phoenix grazing peacefully in his paddock. The scientific equipment might measure his impact on human physiology, but she knew his true healing power lay in something more profound: his ability to remind others of their own capacity for renewal and transformation. The research would continue, unveiling new aspects of Phoenix's extraordinary healing abilities. But perhaps his greatest gift was showing that the body's natural healing wisdom needed only the right conditions, and sometimes the presence of a gentle soul who had overcome his own wounds to flourish and thrive. In the gathering dusk, Phoenix lifted his head to watch the first stars appear, his presence a reminder that science was only beginning to understand the deep connections between all living beings and the miraculous potential for healing that existed within each one. 5 years had passed since Phoenix's rescue, and Hope Haven was preparing for a momentous celebration that would bring together the countless lives he had touched. The sanctuary had transformed from a simple rescue facility into a world-renowned center for healing and transformation, all because of one remarkable horse who refused to let his past define his future. On the morning of the celebration, Sarah stood at the entrance of Phoenix's paddock, marveling at how far they had come. The once broken horse now moved with the grace and confidence of a true healer, his presence commanding yet gentle, his spirit an inspiration to all who encountered him. The event, called Phoenix Rising, a celebration of hope, drew people from around the world. Former patients, medical professionals, researchers and supporters gathered to honor the horse who had changed their lives. The sanctuary's grounds were transformed into a living testament to Phoenix's journey, with photo galleries documenting his transformation and the countless lives he had touched. Dr. Thompson, who had documented Phoenix's work from the beginning, unveiled a comprehensive study of his impact. "What we've witnessed here goes beyond therapy," she explained to the gathered crowd. "Phoenix has shown us that trauma can be transformed into wisdom, pain into purpose, and darkness into light." Among the attendees was Marcus Chen, now heading a global network of therapeutic riding centers inspired by Phoenix's work. "When I first visited Hope Haven," he addressed the audience, "I thought I was seeing a unique case of animal-assisted therapy. What I discovered was a revolution in healing that would change the face of trauma recovery forever." The celebration included demonstrations of the various therapeutic programs that had evolved through Phoenix's work. Children from the hospital program, now healthy and strong, showed how virtual reality sessions with Phoenix had helped them through their treatments. Veterans demonstrated the peace they had found through wilderness therapy, while families shared how intergenerational healing had transformed their relationships. A special moment came when Jamie, the first child who had spoken to Phoenix, now a young adult studying veterinary medicine, led a session demonstrating the therapeutic techniques he had learned. "Phoenix didn't just help me find my voice," he told the crowd. "He helped me find my purpose." The research team presented their latest findings, showing how Phoenix's influence had led to breakthroughs in understanding the connection between emotional and physical healing. Hospitals around the world had begun incorporating elements of the Phoenix Protocol into their treatment programs, reporting remarkable improvements in patient outcomes. During the celebration, a surprise announcement was made. The State University's Veterinary School would be establishing the Phoenix Center for Equine-Assisted Healing, ensuring that his legacy would continue through education and research. The center would train future generations of veterinarians and therapists in the revolutionary healing methods that had evolved through his work. The most touching part of the day came when former patients gathered in the main arena to share their stories. One by one, they spoke of how Phoenix had helped them overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. Their testimonies painted a picture of hope and transformation that moved many to tears. Sophia Martinez, the dancer who had regained the use of her legs, performed a special tribute dance in the arena. As she moved with grace and strength, Phoenix watched from nearby, his presence a reminder of the journey they had shared. The performance symbolized the power of believing in possibilities beyond apparent limitations. Dr. Chen's research team presented new findings about the long-term impact of Phoenix's work. Their studies showed that patients who had worked with him maintained improvements in their physical and emotional well-being long after their sessions ended, suggesting his influence catalyzed permanent positive changes in their healing mechanisms. The celebration also marked the launch of a global initiative inspired by Phoenix's journey. The Phoenix Foundation would provide resources and support for rescue organizations worldwide, helping them implement therapeutic programs based on Hope Haven's model. The Foundation's motto, "From Chains to Change," embodied the transformative power of compassion and healing. As the day progressed, Sarah noticed something remarkable about Phoenix's behavior. Despite the crowds and activity, he maintained a peaceful presence, moving among the guests with gentle authority. He seemed to understand that this gathering was a celebration of not just his journey, but of the collective power of healing and hope. The event included the dedication of a new meditation garden at Hope Haven, designed to capture the essence of Phoenix's healing presence. The garden featured a beautiful bronze statue of Phoenix, depicting him in full stride, free from chains, his spirit soaring. The inscription read, "Where wounds become wisdom and trauma transforms to triumph." As sunset approached, the celebration culminated in a powerful ceremony. Hundreds of lanterns were released into the evening sky, each carrying messages of gratitude and hope from those whose lives Phoenix had touched. The sight of these lights rising into the darkness perfectly symbolized his journey from darkness to light. Sarah stood with Phoenix as they watched the lanterns ascend. She remembered the day she had first seen him, chained and broken, and marveled at how his journey of healing had created ripples of transformation that continued to spread across the world. The legacy of Phoenix's work would continue through the countless lives he had touched, the programs he had inspired, and the new understanding of healing he had helped create. His journey from victim to healer had shown that the capacity for transformation existed in every being, waiting only for the light of compassion to illuminate the path forward. As darkness fell over Hope Haven, Phoenix stood tall under the starlit sky, his presence a testament to the extraordinary power of love, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the possibility of healing. The chains that had once bound him had become bridges to healing for countless others, proving that even the deepest wounds could become sources of light and hope. The celebration ended, but Phoenix's work would continue. His story had become a beacon of hope for those facing their own challenges, a reminder that transformation was always possible, and that the journey from trauma to triumph was one that could inspire and heal generations to come. In the quiet of that night, as the last guests departed, Phoenix's peaceful presence reminded everyone that the greatest victories often come from the deepest wounds, and that every end is just the beginning of a new chapter in the endless story of healing and hope. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.